So welcome everybody to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. And today, today is Tuesday, June the 29th, 2021. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581 and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and your questions because that makes this your show. Give Michael just a moment to get dialed in. And as always, I'll invite you to go to our website, WHYAGAIN.org, and just look around. There's all kinds of the old information, but in a new perspective. It's beautiful. It looks really, really nice, and it's coming along nicely. So give it a try. If you run into something that is confusing or you'd like to see it in a different place or anything, drop me a line at Jeannie, JEANIE, at whyagain.org, and let me know. Let me know what the URL is and what you would like to see. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're with us today, once again, as we carry forward this conversation and create a record for posterity of these first-century Aramaic tools and their function in the best form we know that ultimately will be available to anyone and everyone on the planet. Well, it's pretty awesome that we have this technology called the Internet and this particular piece of technology called Blog Talk Radio, though I wish we could get all the wrinkles ironed out for people listening that have trouble getting in properly. That's another issue. It's kind of out of our hands. But anyway, it's really awesome to have this available, and at the end of each show, you can jump on the archives, pick up a copy of that show and an MP3, and save it to your computer or your phone, listen to it whenever you want, wherever you want, create a link to it, or send the file itself to someone that you want to introduce. And so we're moving forward to deeper and deeper recognition of who we are as human beings. And, of course, you've all heard me ask the question many times, have you ever held a newborn child? And tap into the essence of that newborn. And virtually everybody's response to that question is, if we describe the essence of the newborn, the word is some variation on the theme of love. And then, of course, I ask the question, well, if you think about it, is the newborn loving you or is the newborn love? Clearly, the newborn is love. And to recognize that, the meaning of that word, it's Plato, I think it was, it said, let me define the words and I'll end the argument. If you find your mind going after something that when you get it, you wonder, you're kind of like the dog chasing the car. Now that you caught it, what are you going to do with it? That you realize that if you give the mind the incorrect definition of a word, it's going to chase whatever that word is or whatever the definition is that it has for that word. And once you catch it, you may not be so happy with it. So we're recognizing that love is not something we do or get or give to anybody. It's what we are. And when you realize that true experience of self as love, that the true active presence of love is the objective of this work for each person to have that experience directly for themselves, not nice words about, this Western idea of love being sexual athletics or, what have you, a whole series of definitions that are pretty bizarre and crazy, but that love is a state of being. And one of the most profound reasons for recognizing that and doing what it takes to step into the direct experience of that is that if there's an energetic pattern within you that is based in some form of hostility or fear, and you bring the root, you can expose the root of that hostility or fear to the presence of active love, then there's going to be a dissolution of the energetic pattern that's causing pain by simple exposure to active love. And so the core of the forgiveness process, which is really the core of all of this work, is to come to the point where we understand how to bring and are able to stand in the experience of conscious, active, present love. And at the same time, when applying forgiveness, can access underlying hidden parts of the mind and bring them forward in the presence of love for dissolution. So forgiveness is about dissolving. Forgiveness is about removing. It's not about letting other people off the hook. Love is not about loving someone or having someone love you. The world's definition, the world's game around that sort of direction for the meaning word is really approval. Well, I will, quote unquote, approve of you, do nice things toward you as long as you're doing what I want you to do, but by God, you better not violate a goal I have for you or there's going to be trouble. And of course, the mind that says that doesn't realize that the trouble that it's projecting onto someone else is really something that's inside of itself. So we're looking to have those principles understood by the mind, because the mind, being a goal-oriented device, can only move in the direction of its goals. If the underlying goal for something is to protect myself, if the underlying goal is to attack somebody, whatever, then that's what my mind is going to generate in the way of behavior prompts to take me into a behavior that will successfully achieve that goal. And if I successfully achieve a goal, I'll get a dopamine rush. And dopamine's been called the happy powder of the brain. The problem with the happy powder is that if we achieve a goal that's based in some form of hostility or fear, we'll still get that buzz and therefore be inclined to do that behavior, but we're doing a behavior that ultimately is destructive to ourselves. And so what we're looking to do here is to comprehend all of those principles and bring it down to the point where I have the tools with which to dissolve what does not belong in my mind. I have the tools with which to open the space for the truth of who I am as love to show up in the world. And when we really, truly start to show up, everything is transformed. Everything is changed. Now, we've been having a conversation with this character, Richard. We're on page, 84 of the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? We're going to take a year to cover that book, and we're, almost not quite halfway through it, which is about good timing. We're in the end part of June, so we're pretty much on track. So we've been talking to Richard about this disease process that I call premature positive thinking. And I offered him the thought at the end of yesterday's reading. Premature positive thinking also produces disease. Appropriate and honest thinking is the goal. The only healing and truly restorative processes are those which allow stored negativity to be surfaced, exposed to love, and released. And again, that's called forgiveness. Let go of the need to build a positive framework on top of a negative foundation is the thought that I offered to Richard. Acquire tools and deal with the negative as you develop the capacity to naturally and gracefully live from the positive. In this system, there is no stress from trying to keep a falsehood in place. You look at the type A personality, and they are driven. I remember there was a very popular book a few years ago, The Purpose-Driven Life. It's like, do I look like a cow that I need to be driven? Thank you very much, I'll pass. And humans are not designed to be driven now. You look at many circles and many educational or so-called educational systems, and you think that that's what it was about, was driving them like animals, driving humans like animals. But humans are actually designed to live by inspiration, not by being driven. And so to be restored to the truth of who we are and to live life out of that contact with the higher state of mind, the higher state of being that brings love into expression, that has us living as the presence of love 24/7, 365. Now we've got something that's really valuable and really worthwhile. Contentious thinking, because everything less than positive is given a space to surface and heal. So one now is safe enough to allow any form of hostility or fear to come forward, and in bringing it forward to in the presence of active love, there's this dissolution that occurs. The hostility and fear literally begins to dissolve. And the reason why it's important to dissolve hostility or fear is because hostility and fear are a marker that tell us when our energy system is going in a direction that really isn't designed for human beings. So hostility and fear are a warning system, a warning signal. And what we're looking to do is restore the active presence of love and to dissolve those things that never belonged within the system. In the short term, it takes extra work and commitment to do what I'm suggesting. But in the long run, it leads to a much easier life. With these tools, the body, rid of its burden, can then use its own recuperative powers to rebuild. Disease is not natural. Health is our natural state and is always possible when interference is removed. You know, when you realize that this so-called body-mind unit is in fact an energy system, and that anything that interrupts the function of the energy system is going to tend to destroy it and is off the mark for that system. And you remember, that's the definition from the Aramaic language of the word sin. It's an archery term that simply means off the mark. And so to get things back on track is the idea. And the longer that we hide the hostility and fear-based perceptual constructs of the mind from ourselves and pretend we're not supposed to be there because we're a positive thinker, the longer those states of mind are going to tend to perpetuate themselves. So true health is impossible to achieve when discord is present. This understanding is the foundation of any true health system of healing, bound to be any that is not in that vein. Without this deeper comprehension of healing, any system is bound to be a disease care system, which will consume enormous amounts of wealth. And of course, that's what we have today. You know, you turn around and, you know, a virus hits the culture. Does somebody say, okay, folks, here you go. Here's how you strengthen your immunity. Here's what you need. Make sure you get enough sunshine so you get vitamin D. It's a neurosteroid. It's going to strengthen your immune system all the way across the board. We'll cut 50% of cancers in the United States if we simply have appropriate levels of vitamin D3. And how do you get that? Free. Go out and get the sunshine. Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes a day, you know, from 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon when UVB2 is high. You know, has anybody been telling us that? No. Why? Because it's a disease care system. It's not about health. It's interesting, in the ancient Orient, when you went to a doctor, the doctor got paid as long as you were well. If you got sick, you stopped paying the doctor. And so a true healthcare system is what we're looking to create, and where each person is responsible for their own state of well-being, for the health that they create. And probably the greatest atrocity, you've heard me say this many times, the greatest atrocity that we've had done to us and that we've bought into over the ages is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. You and I are creative beings. So when they told us we were made in the image and likeness of the Creator, what that meant was we are creators. Which, of course, is an idea that everybody just loves when the creation's going well. But nobody wants to hear from when the creation's not going so well. Ah, yes, I know who the problem is if the creation's not going well, and it's them. Have you got a them in your life? If only they change, your life would be better? Well, if you believe that, you're lying to yourself. Creator. Really take ownership of creation means that you have to take ownership of everything that you've created. And when you do that and you stop playing the blame game, then you start to look in positive, constructive ways at even your foibles. You bring them forward in the presence of love and you dissolve them. You create communities of support where there are people who are actually, instead of getting on their high horse about what's wrong with you, where people can actually take responsibility for their own minds and the output of their own minds. Remember that perception is a construct of the mind. Every perception that a mind generates tells us about the content of that mind before it tells us about anything else. And if the mind keeps coming up with hostility and fear-based perceptual constructs, then it's the application of forgiveness that literally reaches in and removes right down to the generational content of our generations. Those generational patterns of hostility or fear, they get passed from generation to generation. And so hostility and fear is just a wake-up call. It's time to listen. When our mind gives us that warning signal of hostility or fear, then it's time to apply forgiveness and remove the root of the hostility or fear and be restored to the truth of who we are, which is quite literally the presence of active love. And so we're honored and delighted that you're here to be part of this conversation. Miss Jeannie, how are you this morning or this afternoon?
I'm good.
Oh, good. Are you Rain sound asleep?
Yeah, it was cute. I was rocking her, and she goes down so easy. I mean, it's kind of like we've got this deal that she takes her nap during the radio show, and nobody misses anything. And so I was rocking her, and I was about to fall asleep, and she got tickled that I was the one going to sleep instead of her. Anyway, she's amazing.
Oh, well, you should probably get in here right after the show and get your hands in the oven, get yourself a little rest before she wakes up. Yeah, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So do we have anything happening in the chat room or anybody out there in the phone queue with a hand up? Sweet.
It is quiet on both fronts. So we've got 43 minutes. Somebody press 1.
Lots of time for conversation. Instead of waiting till the last minute when there's not time left, please, how can we support you? What's on your mind? Calling number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, is 563-999-3581. And the lifeblood of this show isn't what I have to say. The lifeblood of this show is your calls. We really want your input. We want your questions. And, you know, there's a selfish aspect to that. There's an altruistic aspect, and that is that your questions help to stimulate answers and broaden knowledge and such. But your questions also lead me to places where perhaps I've never thought of going before with these principles, and therefore enhances my process. And so we get to interact with some pretty awesome folks, and in so doing, we get to participate in each person's life process. And if your life process is in a different arena than I have, or Jeannie's been, or Dr. Tim has been, then we have the opportunity to participate with you, understand, comprehend, and ourselves ask questions from that perspective. And, you know, there's a story that Einstein was asked the question, if you were given a problem to solve and you had 1 hour, and if you didn't solve it, you'd be dead. They said, what would you do? He said, I'd take 55 minutes of that hour to determine what the question is, and then in 5 minutes I'd solve the problem. And I really believe that that's true. You know, I look at all the years, if I were limited to my own little mind in this last 50 years of doing this work, if I weren't interacting with others who've led me off into all sorts of directions in questioning, then this work would be much smaller, much more limited in its scope. I am deeply appreciative. You know, if you go back and get a copy of my book, and I didn't mention when I was reading it today that you can download the book free from our website, or seeing as it's out of print, you can go to Amazon or to eBay, and there are usually a couple dozen copies of the book there. We were fortunate way back in the turn of the century where you sold, I don't even know how many tens of thousands of copies of the book. And so there's still lots of them out there used that people put on eBay and Amazon all the time. But if you open it, you'll look in the front, and I forget exactly what the number is, but I really, truly went back and looked at the people who had impacted the development of the work up to the point where I wrote that book, which was, about, almost half of the life of this work. It's almost 25 years ago. And if you look, you'll see a listing, and I don't remember exactly how many, 300, 400, 500 names where usually in a book you see an acknowledgement, oh, okay, Uncle Harry and Aunt Mary, thank you, or the editor or the inspiration or whatever. But literally and seriously, I put in the name of people who had an impact on the development of this work, each one contributing some horizon, opening some horizon for me that allowed me to take the inquiry of this work into that area of life and gather an understanding of it. So we value and appreciate your life experience, your challenges, and when you ask questions, we're happy to support you by offering whatever guidance we've got from the perspective of these tools. And we're also delighted to, move in your direction, move in the direction of whatever those challenges are in understanding them ourselves so that we can give real, true support. And, of course, the application of the tools becomes key in resolving the kinds of issues that tend to come up for us as human beings. So if you're out there in listener land with a question, my introduction was kind of short, but, if I'd been in your hometown giving that conversation about premature positive thinking and honest and appropriate thinking and the definition of love being human life, not sexual athletics, if I'd been in your town and I, was in the local library, the local university or prison system or high school or church or whatever it was, when I finished that lecture and walked down off of the platform, you were in the audience. Would you come over and ask me a question? Well, Michael, what about, or how does this fit? Well, what about that? Well, that's what the purpose of this show is, to engage in conversations that bring real life answers to real live people. Not just to do a monologue. It's the human element where we have real human beings with real questions, and sometimes very tough questions, sometimes very challenging questions. I know that we truly do our best to be there for you and with you in whatever your challenges are and working through them. So that's the purpose of this show. And if you're out there in listener land, I would appreciate you raising your hand and asking your question. Sometimes people say, well, but I've only been in this work for a short time, so I don't really even know what questions to ask. Yeah, but notice you've got 1,000 questions. Yeah, but my questions, it might be probably a silly question. There are no silly questions. Every question deserves an answer. And oftentimes, even what seem to be some of the most primitive or simple questions are the thing that inspires us to open a whole new realm of inquiry, a whole new realm of healing and application of tools. So if you're out there, we've got almost 40 minutes left. So what's on your mind? How can we support you? You have the call-in number if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, 563-999-3581. You call that number, you'll be listening to the show. If you push 1, we will see your hand go up in the control panel. Jean will, and she'll introduce you by your area code. So what's on your mind? How can we support you? How are these tools fitting into your world? Or perhaps you've got something to share of a change, a shift that happened for you in utilizing the tools. I was just reading some information this morning about a young lady named Rory. And Rory was she 9 when she wrote us, Jeannie, I think?
9 or 10, yeah.
9 or 10. And in school, she had created a school project on resolving conflict and forgiveness, and decided that she knew what her life was about, and that was to teach forgiveness. So she created a poster board with all kinds of information about forgiveness on it. She called into the radio show. She asked for permission to do this, called into for the radio show And we had a whole hour conversation with her, that's in the archives, about the issue that she wanted to do a worksheet on. We did that issue and walked her through it. And she had that as a recording to take back to her classroom. And apparently the project was a wonderful success. And, you know, for a kid that age to say, I know why I'm here. I am here to teach forgiveness. That's pretty cool. I was just reviewing a note that I'd sent to Dr. Tim when I shared with him that the poster board that she created, Dr. Tim was on the poster board and made the comment to him, it's like, you know, if this was the only result that ever came from all the years of doing this work, it would have been worthwhile. So what's on your mind? How can we support you?
You know, I don't know if we had a second show with her. I don't think we did. You know, the one where she called in and did the worksheet, it was on her email kind of slipping past her that she had a library book that was due. And by the time that it came around to be in her awareness, she had this big fine that was probably going to land in her lap and was going to eat up half of her allowance. And she was real frustrated with herself that her email, you know, didn't alert her or that it went into her junk mail or whatever. But the end result of that, of doing the worksheets around it and letting go of the fear and the anger around being fined or not staying up on top of all the issues, was when she did go to the library to talk to them and she was prepared to hand over her entire allowance, they basically said they weren't going to fine her, and not just that, but they were going to do away with all library fines and just ask everybody to please return the books. I mean, it was like, and she was just like totally amazed that it did. She wasn't the only one that benefited from her doing the work around it, but that everybody benefited from it. So it's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. And, you know, it's one of the ancient principles from the Aramaic where you hear this man, Yeshua, who people think of as a theological figure. And when you hear him say this, you realize he was a physicist. He said a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. And what Rory experienced in that particular worksheet was the shift of energy, of her creative energy in that situation, created a shift in the mindset of this whole official, you know, authoritative system that was going to take money from kids for not returning their books. And, you know, that's the kind of power that we have when we do that level of work on the inside. And you realize, and he said, a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. He's not talking about bread. He's talking about critical mass in physics. And when we choose to do our work, you know, that as creators, we create results in our lives. And it's not until we're willing to find the hidden parts of our minds that we don't want to look at that we're going to change those results. And so the power of the forgiveness process, and if you're not using it, we invite you to. You know, it's something that you can access for absolute free. We have an app. If you go to your app store, you can type in the words Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. If you type that into your app store, you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. And on that app, you can engage right square into how forgiveness is done. There are two different versions of the forgiveness worksheet, reality management, and there is a children's game called the Dragon Klingon game that introduces children to the principles of the forgiveness process. And then there's a new feature that Jeannie just integrated into the system in the last couple of months, and that is the commitment from Healing Through Relationships, and several of its iterations is available through the app. So we are constantly looking to upgrade and make more and more of what we're doing available on a wider and wider scale. And so that's one of the efforts that we've done. And you can also go to our website, whyagain.org, and you'll see, if you've been following the website for any time period, it's like, you know, I don't know just how many pages there are, approximately 20,000 pages on the website. that's like a 10-story building. And Jeannie and Susan, thank you, Susan, for your skills, went in and tore down that 10-story building and built a whole new, beautiful, modern structure out of it. And so information is more accessible, more widespread, more efficiently organized, and more accessible. So go check out the website. And if you do that, the website is whyagain.org. If you go to whyagain.org and you look in the upper right left-hand corner of the opening page, you'll see a link that says Start Here. If you click that link, you'll start on a journey of understanding, literally, how to access the hidden parts of your mind through which you create what happens in your life and change your creation. And so the step-by-step process is there. There are radio shows where we've walked people, either myself or Dr. Tim or Jeannie have walked people through the whole forgiveness process. There are at least 20 of those shows, so you've got access to those instructions. And each one, the worksheets are essentially the same, although it varies from iteration to iteration. But each individual going into a situation has different questions, different brain cells, different challenges. So each one is a complementary packet of information that will expand your understanding of how forgiveness works. So I invite you to go ahead and start listening to those shows. And they're, about 20,000 pages. So there's plenty to engage in. You can download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, free in one of several different languages. The commitment is there from the Healing Through Relationships workshop. There's a whole section of worksheets. My mind tends to work in a way of organizing things so they go into a step-by-step, here's what you can do with this. And so we have dozens of different worksheets on the worksheet page. Some of them are the forgiveness work. Some of them are the codependence worksheet. Some of them are the communication. Did you hear what I think I said? Instructions. So there's lots of different tools there. You're most welcome to access all of them. There are ways that you can access the information free. That's how it can easily be done. And or if you want to step up and support this work, you can go to our website. There's a donate button. You're welcome to do that. And or we are now starting to make available our first online intensive series. Actually, it's our first and second online intensive series in a package. So if you're in a space where you really want to go deeper and you really are willing to support this work by purchasing a course, then we've got 80 hours of video teaching, video processing work, video questions and answers, all done by Zoom in this package. 80 hours, 90 hours. Actually, it's 88.7 hours right now, but we're going to add an extra hour to it, so it'll be around 90 hours, an actual 90 hours of video work. And in that, the topic of that workshop is codependence to interdependence communication practicum. And in that workshop, we do Why Is This Happening to Me Again, Healing Through Relationships, Communications. You hear what I think I said, codependence to interdependence, mind shifters, and StillPoint Breathing. So all of that's included in this 90 hours of video. And the cost for the whole program, permanent access to that 90 hours of video, whenever you want to do it, and access to 2 of our private Facebook pages. One of them is the intensive page, which has all kinds of extra materials in it that we've created through, or that Jeannie mostly has picked up from what we've created and put into the Facebook page. And then we also have a Facebook page that was created by Yarate, and thank you, Yarate, for your skills. When we do an intensive at Heartland, one of the things we offer to people is what you put into your body is really important to how your structure works. And so we do a total fresh and raw food program, which some people in today's world, can't even imagine. How could she, for 9 days or 16 days or 40 days, I'm going to eat just raw food. What are we going to do? Eat grass? Well, actually, some pretty awesome fresh and raw food that is so extremely vitalizing and strengthening. And so the Facebook page Urate put together, the original Codependence Intensive was a 14-week. And so she put together 14 weeks of recipes, 3 meals a day for that whole 14 weeks. So it's a pretty comprehensive set of instructions. And she's broken it out into, here's what you need for this week's recipes. So you've got a shopping list. Here's the place to buy things at the best prices possible for anything you're going to use in bulk. Here's the equipment you need. Here's how your kitchen needs to be. And she's done videos and audios and just done this absolutely fabulous job of putting together the food program. And so that's also included in the intensive cost of $600. And, of course, there are 2 personal code evaluations included in the intensive. The personal code evaluation is an online evaluation that we administer to show people where the blocks are in their minds so that the things they can't see that they need to work on, they can go to work on. And so that's another component of the intensive. And there's a Trello app which has all of the recipes on it. So you'll get an invitation to download and link into our information on the Trello app so that you've got support for all of this awesome fresh and raw food. And so they're the things that are included in the intensive, and I would offer that it's, with 80 hours of video to back it up. There's some pretty profound interactions in that video, or those video programs that we did. It's cheap at triple the price, but that's what it is. And if you decide, when we do a future intensive, if you decide you'd like to join us for that particular codependence to interdependence communication workshop, then you'll be invited to come and participate. And the only cost you would be the upgrade. So you get the original course, have access to it, and then the next course should be invited in and just pay the difference for the live course where there's, live question and answer sessions and such, live processing work done. And we have, of course, 5 days a week, an hour a day, the radio show as support for that specific purpose of uplifting you in your intensive experience. So we're delighted that you're here with us today to be part of this conversation. And if you're ready to go to the next level, that's the way to do it. You can do it for free. You can do it and pay some money to do it, whatever works for you. And we certainly would appreciate the support. The fact is that for almost 40 years, I've been on the road. And 2 years ago, when Janie's dad got to the point where he couldn't live on his own, we decided to pack up the road trip and move here to Bristol, Virginia to take care of him, not being able to live on his own. And so it's definitely changed our lives around and our cash flow. So if you feel inclined, if this is impacting you positively and you feel inclined to support it, great. Go to our website, whyagain.org. There's a donate button. Click and do whatever you choose to do. So that's kind of a little bit about what's happening. Miss Jeannie, are we getting anybody with a hand up as yet? Are you mute challenged, honey?
Actually, I had gotten kicked off and had to dial back in. But
okay.
Anyway, no, it is all quiet on this end. There's no hands up. So we've got 20 minutes. Come on, somebody press 1.
Yeah, I'd love to fill the space with conversation, but I'm not in a place to do a monologue at this point. So perhaps if no one has a question or a thought, we'll let the show go for today. What do you think, sweetheart?
Well, somebody press 1 if you want it to go in a different direction.
I'm with you for that. I would like to carry that on, but I can cancel my goal. All right. Well, I'll just say thank you for joining us and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world, and blessings.